Hello, and welcome to the WWIA Podcast. We're honored to have you join us in our mission to bring honor, connection, and healing to America's combat-wounded Purple Heart heroes. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, we welcome you. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. Please be sure to tell others about our podcast and leave us a review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. The WWIA MO-KAN Ducks, Bucks, and Trapping event has been proudly serving and honoring our Purple Heart heroes for the past 15 years. It's one of our longest-standing events within the foundation, and their patriotic team of supporters are truly a remarkable group of people. On today's episode of the WWIA Podcast, WWIA Founder and CEO John McDaniel welcomes one of our good friends who's one of the integral parts of the mighty team MO-KAN, Mr. Terry Supple. Terry recently retired after successfully owning and operating his own screen printing and sign business for 44 years. He's been married to his beautiful wife for 42 years, is the father of 3 amazing children, is a doting grandfather to 9 grandchildren, as well as 2 dogs. An avid hunter for over 40 years, enjoying both quail and duck hunting, he enjoys the quality and experience of the hunt, including the company and camaraderie of those he surrounds himself with more than anything else. He considers it a high honor and privilege to serve America's combat-wounded veterans with his team over the past 15 years and always feels he gets more out of the experience than they do. We're proud to share this great American story with you and hope you get to enjoy learning more about Terry and Team MO-KAN. Without further ado, let's jump into the conversation with John and Terry now.
Hi, I'm John McDaniel, founder and CEO of the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, and this is our podcast, Honor, Connect, Heal. So today, I have a very special guest with me. His name is Terry Supple. Terry, welcome to the program.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Great. So for everybody, Terry Supple is one of the leaders of our of probably what is our, well, I call it the 800-pound gorilla, but probably the foundation's biggest, baddest mission that we do. I don't know how else to describe it, but the MO-KAN's the 800-pound gorilla because like I said earlier when we were chatting, I said MO-KAN. If the foundation were the sun, MO-KAN would be one of those giant planets out there, circling the sun with this gravitational effect and pull that would, anytime you got close to it, you just get sucked in.
I never heard it put that way, but okay.
This behemoth that's just out there, that's got its own properties and moons and satellites and all kinds of stuff floating around it, man. It's amazing. I mean, it's the one event, the only event where you can, in one weekend, you guys stack up like 200 ducks. Every hero gets a crack at or harvest a monster, Missouri or Kansas timber buck. You have a trap line going with the Department of Natural Resources. And I don't know, and you do a fishing event, on the side for monster catfish. I mean, I'm missing things, but it's just an amazing event and you're a big part of that. And I just wanted to say, thanks for that. But tell us about Napier, because Napier Duck Hunting Club is an amazing club, and you are, I don't know, are you one of the founders? Are you the president? I mean, what's your role there, Terry?
Well, actually, when it all started back in 1998, there were 4 guys got together. I was the 5th guy to come in. We didn't have, I think we had 100 acres. There was no house. There was no roads. There was nothing. There was a gate and a ditch. And it used to be used in the old days for goose hunting, because it is close proximity to the Squaw Creek National Wildlife Refuge, or Los Bluffs as they call it now. And people would pay to come in there and hunt geese. Well, a certain doctor friend of ours bought it back in 1952, I believe, and he just turned it into a private game farm. So we kind of took that and said, well, we want to hunt ducks more than geese. So we flooded part of it. We planted corn on a lot of it. We put in-ground blinds on it, pits, heaters and stuff in them, if you will. Made it comfortable. and kind of progressively took on a few more members to pay for the new stuff, the new land, the more land, the double wide trailer we had, I think was when you came and stayed there. It was a double wide. We since built a 22 bedroom house there that started out, you know, how guys think, you know, this is, if I was going to do this, this is what I'd do. And we all got together, threw it in a hat and funded that ourselves.
That's amazing.
We started out, we had a mud room that was kind of dinky. And we said, well, let's build a bigger mud room. And it snowballed. Now our mud room looks like a gymnasium locker room. And we built the house, and we built a 5 bunk beds, basically for the Warriors to come and stay with us. So they've got their own quarters there. If they want to get away, they can go up there and close the door, or they can, you know, or there's other bedrooms for them. So yeah, it's just kind of progressed into, like you said, a monster. Now we've got it right at 300 acres. We just developed another 48 acres north of us that does adjoin our property now. We put in a new well and pump and all that. So yeah, we're over 300 acres, and it's built for fun.
Wow. You know, I remember the first time I met you. Of course, you know, what started all this was, you know, Brian Roderick and, you know, and his, you know, band of merry men there, 3 or 4 of his best buddies who were all, you know, amazing duck hunters and sportsmen in general. And 15 years ago, I had Jake Whipke with me, and I met Brian on an event. He said he wanted to help. And so we went there and we hunted ducks on his property. It was just ducks at the time, as I recall. And then every year it sort of grew, and he started doing a banquet. And this, like I said, like the planetary effects of MO-KAN just continued to get bigger and stronger. And, you know, we were putting the heroes up in a hotel room. And the problem with doing that is that, while it might be a nice place to sleep, you know, guys go back to their hotel room and they shut the door and that's it, you know, and that doesn't really foster the kind of camaraderie and relationship building and the things that we're trying to really accomplish that happen around a fire or, you know, pit or, you know, in a common use area like Napier offers with a ton of terrain and a setting in the outdoors. And, you know, it's just amazing. So, you know, thanks for, you know, opening up your ranks and then, you know, expanding your operations to accommodate for our heroes now in, you know, the 15th year of the MO-KAN iteration. You know, I know of no other event that we do where we're stacking up. You guys are stacking up, you know, I don't know what the number is, but, you know, 150, 200 ducks in a weekend. Every hero's shooting, you know, getting a chance or harvesting a monster timber buck either in Missouri or Kansas with their, you know, with their bows. There's a trap line in, you know, it's amazing. And you guys also do a big catfishing event in the summertime. And, you know, it's just incredible what you guys have accomplished. And I just want to, you know, extend my gratitude and my thanks for all that you've done in your leadership and support of our mission there, Terry. It's really incredible.
Well, we've enjoyed every minute of it. You know, we've had them at Napier. I've been involved pretty much the whole time, but we've had them at Napier for 13 years now. So
wow.
We just really enjoy having them up there.
Yeah. And what a great bunch of guys. I know we were saying you and I were chatting in the pre-show about the first time we met. I remember I can't recall if we hunted the first time. It may have been the second time, but the first time you said, "Hey, come with me." I think you brought your Labrador, and you and I sat in a duck blind there as the sun was setting. And you didn't tell me what I was about to see. I had no idea, right? I had heard rumors like you need to go. Brian's like, you need to go with Terry. And I'm like, okay, so I go with Terry. You know, we're sitting there and the sun's going down, and you know the habitat is just amazing what you guys have created there. And all of a sudden, as the sun sets, the skies just turn black, literally, with ducks, and the noise that they're making and how they're communicating and where they're flying. It's no, I don't know how they don't collide into each other, but it literally is like a phenomenon.
It
And
is
I've
a
never
wonder.
seen, yeah, it is. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I've sat in duck blinds for hours and hours and never saw a duck. We all have. But here I'm like, what? How come I didn't know that this ever existed. You must be smack dab in the middle of the flyway. But, kudos to you guys for creating the habitat and doing what you've done to attract that many waterfowl. It's really incredible.
Well, it's a fun place. We enjoy it, and it's a kind of our playground.
Right.
As my wife says, it's cheaper than therapy. When I hit the gravel, I know my blood pressure drops 20 points, and it's just you can get away from stuff, and hopefully, you don't have cell service a lot of the time. So,
Right. Exactly.
so that works out okay.
That's like a Camp Hackett. I've had people go, "Why don't you get Wi-Fi?" I just give them that look, like, really, dude?
Yeah.
You're not here to be on Wi-Fi. I don't say anything, but the emergency 911 still works. Don't ask me how I know that.
That's
But yeah, no, you guys, you guys are doing amazing things there. And I had the gals tally up, the total amount of contributions in kind and cash that MO-KAN has produced in the 15 years of your amazing mission there. And it's the number, and we won't get into the decimal points and all that, but it's 528,000 and some change. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Your team has won the highest award that our foundation gives, and that's the Medal of Honor Patron Award.
wow.
Yeah, and you've done that. That's for proceeds in excess of 250,000. So as I look at this, I'm like, I think you guys are in the pipeline to get your second Medal of Honor Patron Award. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. It's really amazing. It's a ton of resource. It's a ton of heroes served. It's a ton of lives changed. And it goes beyond, obviously, the pointy end of the spear there, the work itself. It's that ripple effect that goes off into the community. It's like you say, hey, I'm getting more out of this than you think you are. I mean, you say you are, but and I appreciate you saying that, because I feel the same way sometimes too. When I'm done with a mission, serving the heroes, I feel like I know they got something out of that, but I darn sure know I did too.
Sure.
Sure. And it's an incredible feeling, isn't it?
And it's, it's like the beginning, it's the kickoff to Thanksgiving week. It's the highlight of my Thanksgiving.
There you go.
That starts that weekend, and it's like my knees don't hurt as bad. My problems aren't as big after I meet some of these young men and women that have gone through what they've gone through to give us that opportunity,
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year for me. We always look forward to it.
I know you've developed some relationships with some of the guides. I know, you mentioned in the pre-show, you mentioned Jake and Frenchie, and, we just got a great crew of combat wounded guides that are, supporting your mission and 42 others across the country. But you probably also have a pretty cool story or something. I hate to put you on the spot, but if you've got a story that you'd like to share with us, something that I'm sure we'd all like to hear about your experience there at Napier doing your thing.
Well, there's tons and tons of story, and I did make some notes. That's probably not fair to do that, but this time of the year, especially when I was going through my memory and thinking of some of the cool people we've met, that have come across, John Keeney and Whipkey and Frenchie and Carp and Caleb Wheatley. I mean, geez.
And Carp,
Carp,
I hope Carp is listening to this, man, because we could have a whole program on Carp.
Well, one of the greatest stories that I had was Carp, and Ryan Schultz, who used to help us a lot, and he still does help some, but he's got his own stuff going on now. They're big financial supporters still, but we were getting ready to go to Mass one Sunday morning. Did not go out to hunt, and came out halfway dressed, and Carp says, "Where are you guys going?" I said, "Well, we're going to Mass. It's a little town of Forest City down the road." He says, well, can I go? I said, well, sure, you can go. And he says, well, all I got's camo. I said, okay. So Ryan and I went back to our
God
rooms.
is going to accept you.
Ryan and I went back to our rooms and we put our camo on. And we took Carp to church, and it was a Catholic church. And Ryan and I are both Catholic.
Perfect.
So we're standing there.
Cool.
We introduced him to the priest, and the congregation is all related. So when you walk in, every head in the place turns to see who walked in. So we walk in with Carp, and he makes his presence known wherever he goes.
Yes.
So at the end of Mass, they said, let us go in peace to love and serve the Lord. And Carp throws both arms in the air and says, hallelujah. Completely.
I love that story.
Completely out of line for the Catholic Church, and these 80-year-old Catholic women turned around looking.
They turned around.
I was like, what the heck was that?
It was Carp.
It was Carp.
It was the Carp factor. It was the Carp.
You know?
He's spawning. Did you? Oh my gosh!
And then they proceeded to invite us to their parish luncheon afterwards. They loved it. You know, they loved it. It was new blood, new life to the church.
Yeah.
So much fun.
That's great.
That was a great Sunday morning.
Yeah.
One that won't be forgotten.
I'm gonna have to. No, I'm gonna ask to see if we can't get Carp on. That would be hilarious. What a great American. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I appreciate it. I hadn't laughed that hard on a podcast in a while. I appreciate that. I had no idea. You know, I have to live vicariously through you guys sometimes. I hear these stories, you know, all the time of something, and I didn't know that it happened. You know, I mean, I get it sort of secondhand, but that's a great one.
You know, and that was one of my favorite stories with an individual. And one of the other guys, I wish I knew the kid's name. He was a young man, and he lost the lower leg, I think it was. And we were all sitting on the couch watching football one Sunday afternoon. And a good friend of mine was there with us. Very instrumental. He's a general, very instrumental in getting the Air National Guard involved with us. Lots of labor, lots of help, lots of tables and chairs when we started out. Steve Cotter was his name. And he was sitting next to me. And Steve gets up and he says, I'm going to go get something to drink. You guys need anything? And this kid was sitting next to him. He says, well, yeah, if you're going, I'd take a beer. So Cotter, being gracious, he says, okay, I'll get you a beer. He comes back and the kid elbows me. He goes, here's my camera. Take a picture of this guy giving me that beer. And I said, okay. He says, because my buddies will never believe that I had a bug general fetching me beers.
And you got to watch those enlisted guys. They're wily, man.
Oh, my gosh. And he said he was
hilarious.
a buck private or something when he got injured.
Oh, perfect, right?
He said, so here's this boss, you know, that everybody used to worship.
No, that's right.
And so I got his picture.
What? Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I tell you, the one thing I was mentioning, you know, I had a chance to speak to some folks over the Veteran Day weekend here, and I was thinking about what I might say. And one of the things that came to my mind was just this idea of service, you know. And, well, there's a classic example here. You know, here's a general officer, retired general 2-star officer who's, you know, supporting this activity. And one of the participants asked him if he would go get him a beer. And the general goes and gets him a beer and doesn't even bat an eye because he's in service. Right? We're all in service in a way, shape, or form, you know? And that's just, that's wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, it's just, those things just make you, you know, he's just one of us at that time. You know, if he was in a mess hall, they'd be saluting him. But when he's down in the trenches, and he was a soldier. I mean, he was a good man. He is a good man.
Yeah, he is. He made me a couple of knives. And I asked him if he would make a custom knife for me as a trapper in a place where, you know, there are wolves and things, and I needed to have I don't have as much use of my right arm as I once did, so I wanted to have a knife that I could pull out and use left-handed, you know, with my trapping kit, and he made me one, and I carry it faithfully. It's a perfect knife, and I'm just humbled. He's a great American.
Very good. Yeah, he's a good man. Good man.
Well, there you go. There's another example of the gravity, you know, of MO-KAN. You know, it's 1,000 points of light. You start looking around at all the connective tissue that's out there, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of it's once it's in motion, it just kind of keeps snowballing.
Right.
And our the fundraising efforts. We used to have the big one night gala. I think you've been to one of those.
Yep. Couple of them.
COVA kind of killed that. So
Yep.
we started doing the fundraising. I just said, well, I'll take care of this, and made some phone calls, did some emails, and pretty soon we had enough money to do everything. So, I think that last year, I think you even got a check on our behalf from England, from an insurance company. So,
that's right.
And you'll be doing that again this year. We sent all their telex or whatever those numbers are to them. So
no, that's
should be heading your way.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, it really is. And we're very thankful for all that you all have done and continue to do. And you've got this mission coming up. You guys are all ready for that, huh?
Yes, sir. It's kind of in the process. Brian and I had a meeting last night. Kyle and I met this morning on logistics and guides, and we've got the food and a Catholic school. I'm not bringing up my religion because it's my religion. I'm bringing it up because you talk about reaching out into the community. 13 years ago, my wife is a school teacher at this Catholic school, and we told them what was happening. Well, one of the teachers there, her dad fought in 3 wars. Another one had 2 boys that were enlisted servicemen. One of them's husband was a colonel, lieutenant colonel. So they had a stake in it. They really bought into it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the table, we call it, that these school kids make pictures for them and Christmas ornaments and prayer books. And they bring goodies, enough to fill a 5 by 20 foot table heaped full of goodies for the guys. Wow. Last year it was 2 Ford Expeditions full. I could not get anything else in my truck, and I made 2 trips. But that's the support this. And 3 years ago, that's Jake incredible. And I were talking, and he said, "Well, let's take somebody down there." So we took a couple of guys down, and it was pretty neat. It was very Riles was his name. He was the first one to go, and we do an assembly with the older kids, and they ask questions. And last year, the younger kids came in, and they asked questions, and the guys were so good with them, especially Jake, the way he moderates and controls it, and being a father of a young man himself, and he's. But we've got this school involved with it now, and they just go out of their way to help us. So it's kind of neat how many people get involved.
Well, I'll tell. Well, let me tell you, and again, this is what I said to the both venues that I spoke at over the weekend, was the importance of getting youth involved and telling them about what it means to be a veteran. And it's one thing to tell them, but it's another thing when there's somebody like Jake standing right there, right? Or they get to go and do something that helps veterans, especially combat wounded veterans. It's quite incredible. And I'm super thankful for all of that. And I would highly encourage you, church is a great place. I mean, I'm a Catholic too. I would love my church to do something like that to support. And I know they would if I asked them, but there's plenty of youth involved in that. And it's just wonderful. It really, really is. That's a great idea. Well, and I completely endorse it.
The big step is the first step, and if you reach out to some of these people, and we used to have so many people that came to that banquet, and they'd buy their $10 ticket or whatever it was just to be a part of it. And we didn't ever go back to the banquet. I mean, it was a lot of work. And we thought, well, is it worth the work, or is it just easier to raise the money and have the guys together some more,
Right. And no, that's right. I went to one of them. I'll tell you, I went to one of the MO-KAN banquets, and it was the last one I went to, actually. No, I take it back. I think I've been to 3. I went to 3. Well, one of them I went to, the guys were all in a back room by a pool table, just hanging out. And I went back there, and I just looked around, and I was like, well, this isn't exactly meeting the intent here, but there's a lot going on in the other room, and I just get the sense that that they maybe felt a little uncomfortable. I don't know. It does happen for sure, but it's overwhelming, right? It's completely overwhelming.
Sure.
When there's 350 people in a room, and you know that they're there to celebrate you and support you, and it's a thing, and the guys, some of them are uncomfortable with it, some of them love it, but I understand how much energy it takes to pull it off. Like you said, the hard part is taking that first step, and one of those steps is asking for help. And that's not in my genetics, and so I struggle asking for help, but it's great when you have people like you and your team who aren't afraid to ask for help, help for these veterans that desperately, need to establish, meaningful connections in their life, and need to know that what they did over there, wherever that is, that it was valued, especially by people that they don't know that are American citizens,
sure.
Right? That's what's so important about this. Can you imagine showing up at some venue? You've never met anybody there, and these people are doing all that they can in terms of preparation and during the execution to make sure that your 3 or 4 days that you spend with them is one of the more memorable events you've ever had in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. I mean, if that's not impactful, I don't know what is. And that's what you guys are doing. Everybody's doing that across the country, and that's in support of the foundation. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah. And John, you've just done such wonderful things getting this thing up off the ground and rolling, to have the vision to say, these guys could use some help maybe, and I'm the guy that can do it. And I think that's so admirable that you're, a lot of guys in the service don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
My dad was Korea. He never wanted to talk about it. My father-in-law was Korea in a submarine. He never liked to talk about it.
Right.
The guys from Vietnam, they have every reason not to want to be a part of it or talk about it, and as I told them, I was just a little kid, or we could have done something, and to have the Vietnam guys come in now, it's like we finally get a chance to do something nice for them,
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, you're right. And we very deliberately have, worked that space, the Vietnam space, if you will, with that generation. I was too young, like you. I was born in 1964. So by the time I'm 10, Vietnam is essentially over.
Mm-hmm.
But all of my leaders, when I got on active duty in 1987, as an Army officer, every single one of my battalion and brigade and division commanders for many, many years were all Vietnam veterans. And so I grew up following them, learning from them, and to include the enlisted, I don't want to just make this an officer thing, because it's not. The enlisted men, there was, some platoon sergeants. My first sergeant was a Vietnam veteran. My first sergeant was a Vietnam veteran. So to look up to them, and then having seen the movie, all what Hollywood has done, everything from Platoon to Apocalypse Now, we've all seen them. And we know what, we can imagine what happened over there. We read the books, we can listen to the stories, but for them to come home and not be welcomed is a sin. And you can't put it any other way. We can't change what happened. Can't change that. That happened in this country, and you can't change it. But what you can do is make amends for it, or try to. And so the Vietnam veterans' support to the foundation now has been remarkable.
Good.
And many remarkable. And we're just serving them. We just want you to be part of this thing, and when the heroes look at a Vietnam veteran, when I look at a Vietnam veteran, and I always have been around Vietnam veterans as often as I can, I just say thanks for what you did for this country, and thank you for providing the leadership that you did while you served, and it goes beyond, the service. And when these young heroes, combat wounded Purple Heart recipients, see a Vietnam veteran that might be 20, 30 years older than they are, and he's out there doing it, that sends a very strong and powerful message. Don't you think? Hey, he can do it. He's doing it. He's okay. He made it through it.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So many of them came back and they were nothing. They threw stuff at them. I mean, I remember kids from my neighborhood, 8 or 9 years older than me that had that happen, or they didn't come back. And then you walk by that house every day and think, wow, it hits pretty close to home. And so, now you look at it and I say, the thing I say to a lot of them is welcome home, because they never got to hear that before. They never got to hear that.
Exactly. Yeah, those are powerful words for a Vietnam veteran. Powerful. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, that's great, man. That's really, really great. You guys are just doing God's work, and I really, really appreciate it. I genuinely do. Let me ask you, like, what's it feel like when it's all over? Like when they leave? One of the things I always tell Jake was the first person, Jake Whipke, been supporting the foundation as a guide longer than anybody, any other guide. And he and I have developed, over the years, quite a relationship. But I used to say to Jake, after we'd get done serving, on an event, and, we run around the country for many years together, the two of us just pulling this thing, getting this thing pulled up by its bootstraps. And as it was gaining momentum and some traction in places, we just kept reinforcing that with, doing our best to make sure that, the work we were doing was true, right, and just, and that we were, representing as, the foundation as best we could. But at the end of the events, I would always look at Jake and go, I don't know how you feel, man, but I am smoked like a tipperilla, man. I am smoked. I mean, emotionally, physically, mentally, I am done. I need like 2 days after a WWIA event to go into what I would call the post-event coma and just do nothing besides tend to my feelings. I'm serious, man. Tend to how I'm feeling, recover, process. I don't know what about you, but what do you think? What happens when the dust is settling and everybody's gone? Does that resonate with you?
Oh my gosh, yes. And Kyle and I were just talking about this, and I said I can remember the time on Monday morning where we, put food away, put beds away, clean sheets, whatever we're doing, and get all that stuff done. And Kyle looked at me and he says, I'm just going home and going to bed, and I'm sleeping till Thanksgiving. This is on Monday. Thanksgiving is on the coming Thursday.
Yes.
And Kyle handles all the logistics, the guides, the farms, the travel, the pickups and drop-offs.
Yeah.
And that says a lot.
Oh my God.
And I've always thought, now this is kind of going backwards just a little bit so I can get where I want to go.
Yeah.
But the darkness always brings out the best in a person.
Yeah.
Whether you're driving to a duck hunting spot in the morning with a stranger, you can talk to each other without looking at each other. Ours is at the campfire. Okay. The guys love the campfire and they open up. You don't have to say much, and they open up and talk to you.
Yeah.
And they tell you a story that maybe they've never told anybody, or their family didn't want to hear it, or their best friend didn't want to hear it, but you're listening to them. But they love to sit by the campfire till 1 or 2 in the morning. And these guys are 30 years old and I'm 65.
Yeah.
And I still have to get up at 3 o'clock and pack their lunches and get their stuff together.
Amen.
So,
I know.
Their guide's picking them up at 4:15 or 4 o'clock or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I can do that a couple nights in a row, but after 4th night, I'm dead. I'm drained. And again, it's nothing. I can fix that. I can go home and rest for a day or so, or go to the office. Used to go to the office, but you're drained. You're kind of mentally drained, and but it's a good drain. You'll be sitting there thinking of something, watching a silly football game like nobody cares who's playing, and you'll think of something and just start giggling. It's like, yeah, I remember that. And I remember when he said blah, 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 and so, but yeah, it is draining. And I can just imagine, these guys, when they take off and they've got their cooler full or they've got their antlers, waiting to see that rack come in delivered to them, that kind of stuff. I can just anticipate what they're going to look like when that rack shows up in 3 months, like Christmas Day to them. And that makes it all worthwhile. That's what you do it for.
Yeah, I love this. I love the analogy with the darkness. I mean, that's. I thought you were going to go in another direction with that, but I agree. There's something about in the military we would call it either it's EENT, which is early evening nautical twilight, or BMNT, which is before morning nautical twilight. These are two terms for, at least for an infantryman, that are embedded in in your brain, in your soul. It's that period of time where you can see, but the sun isn't up, or the sun has gone down, or there's complete darkness. Like you say, you're loading the truck up at 3:30 in the morning to go out to the duck blind and the pond and spread the decoys and get the layouts correct, and etc. It's that time where it's the anticipation of the hunt, or it's just after the hunt, that darkness as it's, befalling you is, or rising before you, clearing before you, is something that is really magical. And it's a great time, to communicate or to not communicate. And you don't always have to be saying anything. Just being in the safe presence, of somebody, sharing a common bond, that right there is so powerful. My dad wasn't a very talkative person, but so I've spent a lot of time in the darkness, with my dad before hunting and after hunting. And, man, if you, that's the good stuff right there. And I appreciate you sharing that, Terry. I do.
Yeah. And I've heard more intense stories at 3:30 in the morning, sitting out on the bench with a guy waiting for his ride to show up.
Yeah.
To take him to meet a guide, so, and it just seems like they open up at that time, and
that's great.
Or at the campfire, like I said, sitting around a campfire, they've told a lot of deep stories there.
Yes. Yes.
And some of the guys have been in pretty dark places when they start telling those stories. And then you talk to them 6 months to a year later and they're doing great.
Yep.
And doing big things.
Yep. Well, that's part of the healing process, I mean, and that's telling the story.
Yeah.
And communicating to people that you trust. And you find every time you do it, that it's not as daunting, as it once was, telling the story. And there's, it's cathartic, it's expressing, some of that, some of those memories that will be around you forever. But it's almost like opening the door, a little bit, to your soul, and having some of that, creep out of you, which is good. You've got to do it. You've got to exercise it. And then the other thing you're doing that's so important, there's only so much, random access memory, if you will, or memory in general. It's almost like a computer, your hard drive, your head, your soul. There's only so many memories that you can really, retain and hold. And then, when you're replacing some of those challenging memories of things that you did it because you were asked to do it. You were commanded to do it. It was your job to do it. And we shouldn't have to ask anybody to do some of those things, but we do.
Yeah.
We do, because freedom is not free, and when you're defending this country, and our way of life, or defending, some innocent people and their way of life, you have to do some things sometimes that are, that are hard to deal with after it's been done, and to supplant some of those memories with the memories that you guys are creating, that that's what's happening, and that's really remarkable. The work that you're doing is really remarkable, and the fact that you follow up the fact that you get up at 3:00 in the morning and make sandwiches, I know, hey, you're talking to the chief cook and bottle washer,
Yeah.
I get it, and that's what makes it so special. You're in service. And when they open up and tell you their stories and you can get closer to them, you're making them, you're providing an environment that's permissive and what's happening is good. And that's what you walk away with, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. Exactly right. And how fortunate I am that they felt comfortable enough with me to talk to me.
That's how I feel too.
To tell me some of their stories. And these kids have gone over there, young men, women, whatever, have gone over there and they've had to see things that they should never have to see.
That's right. Yep.
And you've been there, it. I never did it, but I can certainly relate to it. I can just only imagine if, my grandsons went, and how that would be. And, it's a tough thing, but if we can help them, that's what we want to do.
That's the thing, buddy. The work you're doing now, the collective work you guys are doing now is, is your way of serving. And I would argue, without even having an argument, that, the work you're doing now is way more important than what work you may have ever done if you had joined the service or had been called to duty. This is a very, very important work, and it's not over. It never is never over. I would love to someday be out of a job and go, we just don't have, there's no more combat wounded veterans. The country's, doesn't have any more Purple Heart recipients. Someday that would be great, because it means we're not fighting wars, or we're not getting guys banged up, but I think if you look at our, 248-year history, you're going to find that about every 10 years, this country goes to war. Yeah. Wow. Hey, it is what it is. Think about it. Just go back in time. It's 10, 20 years max before we're back in the goo. Before our veterans, our service members are closing with, and engaging in combat with a foreign enemy. 10 to 20 years.
That's crazy. And I heard a thing the other day, not to change the subject, but a commentator was saying that the kids going to vote for the first time have never seen this country without war. 18 years, we've been at war, since, early 2000s. So they've always had war in their back pocket. So it's good.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, well, listen, my friend, I'll give you the last whack at the pinata if you want it. I don't want you to leave here with any saved rounds in your vest. expend all ammunition. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, my friend?
No, I just think that we are blessed to have the crew that we have up here and the support people. Of course, the Brian and Brad and Kyle and Mark Williams and Ryan Van Meter. I mean, these guys all kick in so much, and even my donors that, for the last 6 years, I get phone calls the 1st of September. When are you going to send me that note for your money? And so, unfortunately, I've had 3 of them passed away in the last year who were big donors for this project. Sorry. But, then they were older gentlemen, but it's tough, but it's so fun because these people are energized. And it's like the old buddy you don't talk to until hunting season. Right. Some of these people I never talk to. Hey, when are you going to send me the note? Or they'll call me. I haven't seen your email yet. Where do I send my check? And so you've got that kind of support. It's pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to do, and we'll keep doing it as long as we can.
Well, Terry, thank you for your time today, and thanks for all you've done over the last 15 years. And I wish you and your team, your MO-KAN team, all the best here coming up on the 15th mission. And just know that I'm proud of all of you, and very humbled that you're carrying the guidon and representing the foundation as well as you do. It's remarkable, and thank you all for what you're doing.
Well, thank you for letting us be a part of it, and we'll just keep doing what we do.
All right. God bless you. You have a great day, my friend.
All right. Thanks, John. We'll see you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the WWIA Podcast. To learn more about the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation and how you can get involved, please visit our website at WWIAF.org or follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you'd like to comment or offer feedback about our podcast, or if you have a suggestion for a future episode, please email us at podcast@WWIAF.org. Thank you for your support and for helping us honor, connect, and heal our combat wounded Purple Heart heroes through the power of the great outdoors.